Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. A little louder. A little louder. Warm in here from all the cooking, all that. Unusual. Very nice kirtan. No, I have to take the echo out.
I forget.
Well,
You know.
You know? I don't know. It's this. I think it's on the effect. Yeah, we turn it on.
It's just a reflection.
Now speak, Maharaj?
Haribol, Haribol. Yes. What did you do to it?
I turned the effects off. No, I turned this off. This is FX.
What? Show me.
Move.
Yeah, that's the effects.
It's this gray.
The FX is the
You bring
effects.
it down.
Okay.
Because if I increase it, it creates
Okay.
reverb and echo.
Yeah, and I think that light that's on doesn't even need to be on.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay. That's simple. Simple for the simple. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Gyanti Randasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunamilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tishe Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalmashanashaya Janavapataye Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupaswarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Diksha and Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Asto Tarsata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. And Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Asto Tarsata Sri Srila, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And my Dandavat pranams to all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. My Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So now we're continuing with, we'll complete the purport of Srila Prabhupada's to the first shloka of Sri Upadeshamrita. So yesterday we ended our class where Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, he's talking about if one can restrain, well, I'll read from the beginning of this. Similarly, the demands of the body can be divided into three categories: the demands of the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. One may observe that these three senses are physically situated in a straight line as far as the body is concerned, and that the bodily demands begin with the tongue. If one can restrain the demands of the tongue by limiting its activities to the eating of prasad, then the urges of the belly and the genitals can automatically be controlled. In this connection, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, and he quotes the entire Prashadov Prayer, one of our favorite prayers. Sharira vidya jal jyotendriya tarikal. Have you ever analyzed, broken this down with the Bengali sentence and what each line is telling? It's a very powerful prayer, not something lightweight. I remember 1975, in my first, I think, Braj, you were there too, right? And we arrived off of the airplane. I always remember, when I think about this prayer, I think about this particular experience that we had arriving for the very first time in Mayapur. It was like a few hundred devotees, maybe 400 or 500, right? We all flew from New York on a jumbo jet, Air India, stopping along the way in England, Germany, etc., and picking up devotees. And it was mostly devotees. There were some non-devotees on the plane, but I don't remember any non-devotees. Yeah, there was a few, but like the whole thing was devotees. And they had lunch bags for us at Prashadam before we got on the plane, and it was a long, long journey because you didn't get off the plane. Not like nowadays, you fly to some hub, you get off, then you change planes, you walk, you like that, you know. But no, we were on the plane, and we flew first from New York to London, then we flew from London to Germany, then each place, more devotees came on the plane. It was a chartered plane, so therefore it was specifically, lined up. All the devotees were waiting at the airports. From Germany, I think that's the only place that we stopped in Europe, and then we went to Behran, remember that? refueling the plane in the middle of the night. It's all dark and eerie. And then from there, we flew to Bombay and didn't get off the plane. And then we flew from Bombay to Calcutta. So the whole thing was how many hours? At least 30 hours or something, maybe more. Anyway, so they had buses waiting for us from Mayapur. And that year was the first year that the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir was completed. So Srila Prabhupada stayed there, and but our accommodations were pretty rough. You know, in Mayapur, the front wall that you see, and like there's the central big gate, and on both sides you have this whole long thing. That's all there was. There was a Chandrodaya Mandir and this wall that had wet cement in each and every small room, and that's where we stayed. And it didn't have any security. You couldn't close the windows and lock them because there were no windows. But we did get mosquito nets, thankfully, you know. And so when we came into the front gate, there was a huge, gigantic pile of green coconuts. And most of us had never drunk a green coconut in our life, or seen one, you know. So now they were like, you know, opening the coconuts and giving them to the devotees, and we were drinking. So then they directed us, just put your stuff, find yourself a room. There's like 5-6 devotees in one small little room. I don't think they even gave us mats. No, they gave us straw mats. Yeah, straw mats. So then they told us to go all the way to the other end where they had built a pavilion, the Prashadam pavilion, and it was also just recently finished. So all of us poured into the pavilion, and you know, have you ever seen that? The inside of that pavilion? Nowadays, it's still being used for a free Prashadam distribution, but it's kind of like, I don't know, you have to go through some turnstile or this or that. But anyway, we came in and sat, and what they had was, it was like really, really long. Probably you could seat about maybe almost 100 devotees in each line. What they had was a small, made out of bricks and cement, a little elevated, what do you call it? Like a table. Yeah, so then they had the devotees facing each other. So that's how everybody was seated. You know, and then they came and they put the leaf plates down. None of us had ever eaten off of a leaf plate. Then they put the clay cups. None of us had ever drunk from a clay cup. And then they began the serving of the prasadam, right? So while the serving of the prasadam was going on, there were some very senior Gaudiya Mat Vaishnavas, and I don't know who they were. They could have been sannyasis. They maybe even could have been godbrothers of Srila Prabhupada, or, you know, but they were elderly. And like, this is the historic moment when Westerners are arriving in Mayapur, and you know, we've just gotten off the plane and off the buses, rumbling along, you know, and nodding off. And now we're about to take prasadam, and then one of them, in a classic operatic Bengali voice, began to sing Surera Vidyajal. And then everybody responded, all the devotees, because everybody knew this Bengali song. Everybody responded, hundreds of devotees, Surera Vidyajal, the whole thing, the whole, you know, auditorium, what do you call it? Pavilion. It was just like echoing with hundreds of devotees' voices, you know? And they went through the whole song. You know? And then we got to the end of the song, and we thought, Premidako Chaitanya Nitai. But they went on and on. Jai Nitai, Jai Gaur. And then after they did that, then they went on to the next song. which was actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't write only one. We only learned this first part. He also wrote another section. I don't know if we have that in our song.
Prasada.
There's a Mahaprasad section in the newer edition. It has some songs. I don't know if it's the same ones.
Yeah, you can check, see. So anyway, to begin with, the tongue is important, is it not? Does this tongue get us into trouble in the conditioned state? Yes, everybody is in full agreement.
More ways than one.
In more ways than one. Yes, and not being able to control the tongue, we also heard during the lecture, and I was also hearing, Bhakti Sridhar Maharaj's lecture the other day. While he was cooking, and I was hearing him, I was in the temple room. He was saying also, how the tongue, being uncontrolled, especially the urge to speak, the first one, Vachavegam, was the cause of Mahabharata war and Ramayana. Both. Right? This little slippery tongue, which is very soft and slippery, not hard. And it becomes the cause of so much trouble. So, here Bhaktivinoda Thakur has put everything into perspective, right here, for us. This is about us. We who cannot control the tongue, we who have been rotating in the cycle of birth and death for millions of lifetimes. But now, here's our prayer. O Lord, Sharir Avidyajal. What does that mean? Sharir means this body, Avidyajal.
Basically, no knowledge.
In the ocean of ignorance.
Jal means net. Okay? Avidyajal. Avidya means what?
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Where does ignorance come from? Where does avidya arise from?
Ahankar?
Yes, but ahankar, what causes ahankar? What's the original cause of our conditioned life?
Forgetfulness.
From Tatashta, looking.
Yes, but we make a choice. What's that choice that we made?
Turn away from Krishna.
It's called Krishna Vimukata. Krishna Vimukata. To turn away from Krishna. Avidya arises. Avidya means forgetfulness of our real constitutional identity. That's avidya. Vidya means knowledge. Avidya means total ignorance. So this was translated as, O Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance. We used to like saying that, didn't we? I remember when we would be, after the morning program, and we come to the Prashadam room, and all the devotees were so young and full of vitality, and you know, we're saying this song, but we also said it in English every day. We didn't just say the Bengali. And then everybody unanimously, oh Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, with great enthusiasm. We were telling like this. A big lump. So, and then Jyotendriya Tahe Kal. What does that mean? Indriya means what?
Senses.
Senses. And Kal means?
Time?
In this connection it means, actually, it is a network of paths. Here's how Prabhupada translated it, because network is in the word jal. But he translated it in this way. Sharir avidya. This body is a lump of ignorance. And jal, jatendriya, tahikal. These senses are a network of paths leading to death. Kal. In this connection it means death. So, the body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of pathways leading us to death. And then he says, Jive Pele Vishaya Sagare. So what does Sagare mean? And what does Vishaya mean?
Enjoying.
Sense enjoyment. Vishaya Sagare. Jive Pele. The Jiva has fallen into the ocean of material sense enjoyment. Jive Pele Vishaya Sagare. Then, Tar Madhye Jiva Ati. Lobhamoya Sudurmati. What does that mean? Tar Madhye means amongst these senses that we have fallen into this ocean of sense enjoyment by being in the network of these senses leading us to death. So, tar madhye, amongst all these senses, jiva ati. Jiva means tongue, and ati means?
The one.
Well, here it's actually it's mixed in. Jiva ati. Ati means very much, okay? So, tar madhye jiva ati lobha moya and sudurmati, two things. It is this tongue is lobhamoy. What does the word lobha mean? And we know what lobha means. We say it all the time.
Greed.
Yes.
Full of greed.
And here it's translated as voracious. The tongue is voracious. And what does sudurmati mean?
Like wretched.
No, sudurmati means very difficult to control. It is lobhamoya sudurmati. Very difficult to control this tongue. Take jeta katin samsare. So take jeta means it is very difficult to conquer the tongue. Take jeta katin. That means very difficult to conquer this tongue where? Samsare, in this material world. Very difficult. So, now comes the good part. Up to this point, it's all bad. Krishna Boro Doyamoy. What does that mean?
Krishna's
Very merciful.
Extremely Doyamoy. Full of doya. Full of mercy. And Kori Bare Jivva Joy. Jivva Joy, or Jai, means conquering. Jai, having victory over the tongue. In order to conquer over the tongue, Krishna, being so merciful, has done what? Sva Prasad Annadilobai. Oh, my dear brothers, Krishna has given his own prasad. Sva Prasad means his own prasad. Anna Dilobai. Now, Anna, in Bengali, it means foodstuffs, but sometimes they also utilize it as rice. Because when they're serving,
Always right.
you want more Anna. You want rice, right? So, Svat Prasad Anna Dilobai. Oh, my dear brothers, he has given his own prasadam to help us to conquer this tongue. So, what do we do in response to Krishna's merciful dispensation of his own prasad? Say Anam Rita Kao. This nectar, Anna Amrita, Anamrita, this nectarine foodstuffs. Say Anamrita cow. Let us see the word cow. There's two words in Bengali, cow and pau.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, cow means to eat. And pau means to accept, to take. Like we say, we don't say, hey, let's all go and eat some prasadam.
You don't say.
We don't say, let's go and eat prasadam. We don't say like that, do we?
Take.
Let's all take prasad, you see? Because this is not just an activity for the body. This is an activity for the soul, and this is an activity for the purification of our whole existence. So with great respect, we do what is called Prashad Seva. It's not called eating. It's called Prashad Seva. And there's I've heard explanations Sri Aniruddha Prabhu talking about how he has a whole incredible way of honoring Prashadam. And he describes it in his book, and I've heard it from him directly, And then he says, this plate this is Radha and Krishna. This is actually Ras Lila. So before we take prashad, then we put water all the way around like this and say these prayers very humbly. And then he has a whole way of chewing the prashadam by saying the Maha Mantra in your mind while you're chewing with each mouthful 8 times, 8 Maha Mantras like this.
Wow.
Okay? This is called Prasad Seva. Now we don't do that. We're just talking and talking and talking about so many unrelated things. But that's okay. Because we're neophyte devotees. We're not expected to have that level of realization yet. But we better get there at some point. That's why the Upadeshamrita is important. To elevate us. Okay. So, Sayanamrita cow. Why we don't say cow? Even though it's stated here, because anna also means food grains. And that's why we don't say this prayer on which day of the month? Yes. We don't say this prayer because it's mentioning anna. It's mentioning grains. Yeah, Vishnu Tattva Day. Yeah, any day when you're not taking grains. So, let us take this prasad, annamrita pao, and while we're taking this prasadam, Radha Krishna gunagao. Let us sing the beautiful qualities of Radha and Krishna. And preme dako. What does preme dako mean? Let us call out. Dako means to call out with prem. Preme dako. Chaitanya Nitai. So when those senior Vaishnavas were chanting this, we've added in the Gaudiya Mat what nobody ever used to sing before. And I even taught this to Radhakanta one time. And I wrote it down for him because he didn't know. You know what do you call it? Not a preamble. Something like at the end of a song that's added. There's a word for that. Maybe. All right. So at the end, when they say, Premedako Chaitanya Nitai, then what do we say? Preme Bore Dakore. What does that mean? Preme Bore Dakore. With love, call out. Then we say what? Doyal Nitai. Doyal Gaur. Doyal Nitai. Doyal Gaur. And then what do we sing? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. And then they said the whole giant money. You know,
I'm confusing
Big
my
job.
tongue right now, Maharaj, a little. Like, is it Prashad?
So, after Srila Prabhupada gave this translation, now he's writing, continuing his purport here, he's saying, there are six kinds of rasas. You know what a rasa is? Taste. In Ayurvedic philosophy, medical philosophy, these 6 rasas are the basis of proper digestion, proper health of the body. These 6 different rasas, what are they? Let's see if we can say them.
Liquid.
Sweet, sour.
Liquid?
Are we doing, I'm thinking
No,
of
no,
liquid
no.
choose drink and stuff, that's something else.
No,
Yeah,
that's the
sorry.
4 types.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Wrong one, switch.
So these are the 6 tastes.
Yeah.
These are the 6 tastes. What are they?
Sweet, sour, pungent.
Pungent, sour.
Wait, I'm going to just concentrate on one person here.
Vegetable.
I'll demonstrate how to do prasad service.
Okay.
I don't know if I know. Sweet, salty, sour, pungent, bitter, and what's the last one?
Astringent.
That's not sour?
No.
Yeah, what's the difference between astringent and sour?
Oh.
Sour?
Sour is sour and astringent
Yeah.
is astringent.
But I'm just wondering, in a
It's
food,
a
I
texture
guess
in your
I'm saying,
mouth
what's a
versus
food?
In
sour.
astringent,
It's like when
There's
something's
a-
almost like underripe, it becomes
like
astringent. Yeah, it's like, really?
Makes you puff.
what?
This is why I'm asking.
Like amla. Have you ever taken
Yes,
amla
amla.
fruit?
Okay, astringent.
Amla is astringent.
Lemon is
I think it
sour.
has kind of like a drying effect
Yeah,
or
there's
something
some
like
kind
that.
of texture it gives in
Makes
your
you
mouth.
pucker.
Yeah.
Versus sour just
What?
gives it that.
Makes you pucker a little.
Makes you pucker a little.
What
Yeah,
about
that's true.
chach? What about chach?
No.
Buttermilk? What is
Vinegar.
that? What is that
That's-
considered? No, not
I think that's a little sour.
Yeah.
sour. Okay,
Yeah.
I just
Not
Chach.
sour. Is vinegar?
Vinegar? That's also sour. It's also sour. Alright, so now there are 6 kinds of rasas, tastes. Now listen to this. If one is agitated by any one of them, he becomes controlled by the urges of the tongue. Now I remember reading in Srila Bharati Maharaj's beautiful, wonderful book that we refer to all the time, My Beloved Masters. And I don't remember which particular Vaishnava it was referring to, but actually his Guru Maharaj, wonderful and tasteful, and he would actually just mix together everything and take like that. Because he would consider it to be an offense to differentiate that this is good prashadam and this is not so good prashadam, like that. Yeah, he used to do. And Srila Bhakti, was it Pragyan Keshav Maharaj or Bhakti Dayata Madhav Maharaj? I forget. Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he would never ask for anything. Can I have some salt or this or that? Just as it is, he would take.
Srila Vaman Maharaj also, I've heard that.
Okay.
That he would
Yeah. There's
salt.
probably others as well, because they're very advanced and they understand this principle. Oh, there's something came in my mind just now, but now it escaped. It's in regards to this principle of not being attached to the tastes.
There was a
Right.
story about Srila Brahman Maharaj, I believe, where he takes his servant, gives him prasad, and there was some mess up, but he took, and then it wasn't until after that his sevak ate it, and I think it's Brahman Maharaj, and then he eats it, and then he realized, oh my God, what did I do? But Srila Maharaj didn't hear puke out of him. He just ate prasadam, he honored it, and that was it. And that was just an example of just honoring his offer to lordships.
Oh, now I remember what I was going to say. So when you go to India and you're in a Gaudiya Math temple, there's some particular proper etiquette while taking prasadam. Let us remember what those proper etiquettes are. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gaudam Govinda Ji Ki Jai. Westerners are not familiar, and I've seen it many, many times where a Westerner is being corrected by one of the Bengali devotees, you know. So what are those etiquettes when taking prasadam?
You always use your right hand, that's one etiquette.
Yes.
You always have the plate not on your asana.
Not touching
Yeah.
your asana or your cloth or your body. Not touching. If it's touching, it's considered what?
Juta.
Juta. I remember our Jiva Priya Prabhu, he had a whole presentation of Juta and non-Juta, because, you know, he lived closely in that environment. So what does Juta mean? It means like contaminated. And we also have the term that we learned in ISKCON.
Muchi.
That's Muchi, Prabhu.
Suchi and Muchi.
Suchi and Muchi. So, yes. And even to touch your plate with your left hand, like to move it or something like that, that's Juta. There's like electricity, he was explaining. Like electricity touches something, then it goes, you know? So the Juta principle is like that. So, what else?
You don't get up ever.
Well, yeah, that etiquette is very strict, especially on days when you have many, many senior Vaishnavas from other mats that have come, and you have the whole line of the senior sannyasis and everything. So no one gets up from their plate until the senior most person, right? And before they get up, they say, there's another thing. What is that? Savadhana, or something like that. So it means, be very careful. Savadhan! Something like that. Savadhan! Be careful. Because it's Krishna Prashadam. And also, you're never supposed to step on any piece of rice or any prashadam.
Or over the plate.
Especially that, to step over the prashadam.
And serving out, not doing it this way.
This
means like enemy. Like if you're,
really?
Serving turned out,
Yeah,
you
you
want
have
to
to
serve
turn it in.
this way. So that's serving is a whole other rule.
Serving, yes. Okay, that's enough for us uncultured Westerners.
Oh, there's the last one.
We'll get discouraged of taking prashadam if we're too many rules and regulations. That's why Prabhupada, he didn't. You see the first devotees in the first film in 26nd Avenue and Chutananda and Kirtanananda, they're all like taking prasadam, eating prasadam, you know, and they've got like their chapatis in their left hand and their dal, you know. But Prabhupada was just happy that these little babies, that they're drinking their milk, you know. All right. So, if one becomes agitated by even one of these 6 different kinds of rasas, he becomes controlled by the urges of the tongue. Now, Prabhupada's going into a pretty in-depth analysis of how mundane, materialistic, conditioned jivas go lower and lower in these attachment to the tastes of the tongue. How does he put it? This is a classic sentence. I remember in the past, like reading this. So listen to this. Prabhupada said, some persons are attracted to the eating of meat, fish, crabs, eggs, and other things produced by semina and blood, and eaten in the form of dead bodies. That's how low, in the mode of ignorance, the tongue goes to taste. Okay? Others are attracted by eating vegetables, creepers, spinach, or milk products. But all for the satisfaction of the tongue's demands. Such eating for sense gratification, including the use of extra quantities of spices like chili and tamarind, it is to be given up by Krishna conscious persons. And I remember
extra quantities.
Yes, it means, you know, it means the normal Bengali dosage.
Yeah.
That's like extreme, okay? You can barely taste the dal. It's like, all right, so, oh yeah, so I heard a story, how Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, you know, he was always there in his mutt. And he was invalid and he barely ever came down the stairs, but you know, he was still controlling everything from above, right? And devotees would have to report to him, and he was giving various instructions, and you know, they would say, I'm going to the market, and he would give some, he liked to do this, you know, so he would give some money for them to purchase in the market. And so, you know, this was like a regular occurrence in the mutt there. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he would suddenly tell them, no more chilies. And you know, for Bengali, that's a type of psychological torture.
Yeah.
You know, no more chilies. So, like, to put it in the cooking, first of all, no more chilies. But he also indicated, and no more green chilies on the side. So he would give that instruction, and there would be a little bit of moroseness in the devotees. And then some days would go by. But then gradually those little green, skinny, long things would again appear at the side of their plate. And they were eating the chilies along with the meal. But then the chilies started to enter again into the cooking. So this went on, and I don't know, maybe it was like over a period of 1 month or something, right? And then again, Srila Sridhar Maharaj would say, no more chilies! And then the whole sequence would begin again. So too much chili is actually, first of all, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. But a little chili, when given properly, according to a person's different kinds of constitutions, especially in the change of seasons and Kartik time, I remember, like, you know, Tirtha Maharaj one time, he was arguing on behalf of chilies publicly to the devotees, because the Western devotees, they didn't want any chilies, you know?
Because there were so many.
Yeah, but nevertheless, they just like, you know, they wanted separate cooking, no chilies, and like this, you know, and we were cooking for hundreds of devotees. So Tirtha Maharaj, one time I saw him, he kind of like lost it, and he just said, look, you don't understand. This is now changing season. Yeah. You need chili for health. You need some chili, you know.
To keep the cold out of the body.
Yeah. And you know, what did Prabhupada administer to us fledgling little baby devotees in the beginning when we caught a cold, huh?
Brahmastra Juice.
Thank you. Brahmastra Juice. Do you know what Brahmastra Juice is?
Chili, ginger. It's chili, ginger. It's cayenne, ginger, and turmeric, right?
No,
turmeric?
black pepper and cayenne.
Yeah, black pepper's there.
Honey? Is there any honey?
Ginger.
A little honey, yeah.
Yeah, lemon also.
And honey.
And black pepper?
Cayenne.
Honey? I don't remember. Maybe. After.
Oh, no black
So-
pepper. It's just black pepper now.
So, and it works. It worked. Did it not work?
Yeah.
Yes. Because it heats up your whole body. You know what the Russian method is? I learned when I went to Russia. I got a very bad cold one time in the winter. And you know what the Russian method is? It's very interesting.
Eat a bite of chili, eat a bite of ginger.
No.
Elderberry?
No, the Russian method of overcoming a severe cold is the following. You prepare very, very hot, like you can barely sip it, hot herbal tea. Can be any hot drink, right? Then you heat up a big bucket of very hot water, right? And you get blankets and you wrap yourself in the blankets, right? And you put your feet and then the hot water is poured and it comes up to about here. You don't have to go deeper than that, not up to your ankles, just up to here. So this hot water is penetrating through the bottoms of your feet and through your feet, and simultaneously you're sipping the hot tea. And then what happens is within like 10 minutes, your body starts sweating like anything, you know, and you just keep on until you can't tolerate it anymore. And then after that, you take off all this wet blankets and you put on other cloth and you stay warm, and it cures your cold very quickly. Yeah.
Chili has a lot of vitamin C.
Yeah, chili does actually. It has a lot of vitamin C. Not as much as amla. Amla is very high in vitamin C.
What is
Okay,
amla?
so
What is
amla? What is amla?
It's a fruit.
It's a fruit.
What's the
You've heard of
It's called,
it's called trifala. Have you ever heard of trifala? It's the most famous Ayurvedic medicine. And it's made out of 3 fruits. And one of them is, I think, haritaki, and amla,
Always forget the
and
name.
another one. So, now Prabhupada, after saying that all this extra quantities of spices, chili, tamarind is to be given up by Krishna conscious persons. Now, he says, and here is the thunderbolt for the Sahajiyas. The use of pan, haritaki, betel nuts, various spices used in pan making, tobacco, LSD, marijuana, everyone heard that? Opium, liquor, coffee, and tea is indulged in to fulfill illicit demands. If we can practice accepting only remnants of food offered to Krishna, it is possible to get free from Maya's victimization. Vegetables, grains, fruits, milk products, and water are proper foods to offer to the Lord, as Lord Krishna himself prescribes. However, if one accepts prasad only because of its palatable taste, and thus eats too much, he falls prey to trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us to avoid very palatable dishes even while eating prasad. Now everyone has become very sad. I've failed. Everyone is thinking, oh my God, I've completely failed. Huh? So, Mahaprabhu taught that to Raghunath Das Goswami. And the verse is going to be quoted here. So, he says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us to avoid very palatable dishes even while eating prasad. If we offer palatable dishes to the deity with the intention of eating such nice food, then we are involved in trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. If we accept the invitation of a rich man with the idea of receiving palatable food, we are also trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya 6, this is quoting Mahaprabhu, he says, Jivar lalase je iti uttidhai, shishno dara parayana Krishna nahi pai. Listen to this one. That person who runs here and there seeking to gratify his palate and who is always attached to the desires of his stomach and genitals is unable to attain Krishna. Krishna nahi pai. As stated before, the tongue, the belly, and genitals are all situated in a straight line, and they fall in the same category. Lord Chaitanya has said, Bhalo na kaibo ar bhalo na paribe. This is from the same, it's the verse before the one that was just quoted. He's telling to Raghunath Das Goswami, because Raghunath Das Goswami, he was always receiving all of his instructions. 100% of his instructions were from who? Swarup Damodar Goswami. But one time he asked through Swarup Damodar Goswami to Mahaprabhu if he could receive any direct. And this is what Mahaprabhu taught to Raghunath Das Goswami. So Lord Chaitanya has said, Balo na kaibo ar balo na poribe. That means do not dress luxuriously and do not eat delicious foodstuffs. So, how does this apply when we have a big festival, or like Govardhan, Puja, all the ladies dress up in very nice saris and colorful, and it's festive, and this is part of the Vedic culture and the Vaishnava culture and all that. Well, so have we disobeyed Mahaprabhu's instruction here by dressing luxuriantly in that occasion and cooking a huge, gigantic feast? Huh? What about that? Huh?
I think there's a distinction between doing it and the desire for it.
There is.
If you want to
Yes.
dress for your...
There is.
Then, yeah.
Yes. But why, for what purpose is everyone dressing up?
To emulate
Please,
Braj.
For Krishna's enjoyment.
To bring the Braj mood.
But what is that Braj mood that's being brought by dressing up?
Big feasts and gopis dressing up.
Lord Chaitanya said to feed him up to the neck. In the festival.
Okay, but that's another, hold that one. Hold that one. We're talking about dressing right now.
Just to create that festive mood for Thakurji.
For Leela.
That's the whole point. Who are you doing it for? You see? It's just like we're taking Prashadam and we're tasting beautiful, palatable Prashadam. Who are we doing this for? Our tongue? Have we become the servants of this soft, slippery tongue, Gurudev says, which has no backbone? So, we're doing it for Krishna. And neophyte devotees are given some concessions because they don't know yet. They haven't developed their bhakti so much. So, it is not, in their case, it is not a transgression of these rules because the pure Vaishnavas just become very happy just to see everyone observing the culture and enjoying, because that enjoyment, it's in relation to Krishna. This is the whole point. But then when you advance more, then even that has to be controlled. But in the beginning, no way. No. What does Prabhupada say? Take prasad up to the neck. And Prabhupada was feeding and take more, take more, take more. Why? Because it's Krishna himself, right? Krishna himself has come in the form of Prashadam. Cooked by the hands of a pure devotee, offered to Krishna by the pure devotee, served by the hands of the pure devotee. You can't get better than that, can you? In the realm of taking Prashadam? No, no way. Not possible. So now he says, those who suffer from diseases of the stomach must be unable to control the urges of the belly. At least according to this analysis. Those who suffer from diseases of the stomach must be unable to control the urges of the belly. At least according to this analysis. When we desire to eat more than necessary, we automatically create many inconveniences in life. Now there's a saying Prabhupada taught us. It is told that young boys, girls, young, very young, they should eat more. Right?
He'd say they cannot commit the offense of eating too much.
Yes, they should overeat. Then, old men, old persons, they should undereat. And in the middle, they should take enough. So, then he says, we can create so many inconveniences if we eat more than necessary. However, if we observe fasting days, like Ekadashi and Janmashtami, we can restrain the demands of the body. We can do by observing fasting. So as far as the urges of the genitals are concerned, there are two, proper and improper, or legal and illicit sex. When a man is properly mature, he can marry according to the rules and regulations of the Shastras and use his genitals for begetting nice children. That is legal and it is religious. Otherwise, he may adopt many artificial means to satisfy the demands of the genitals, and he may not use any restraint. And when one indulges in illicit sex life as defined by the Shastras, either by thinking, planning, talking about, or actually having sexual intercourse, or by satisfying the genitals by artificial means, he is caught in the clutches of Maya. These instructions apply not only to householders, but also to tyagis, or those who are in the renounced order of life. So we're just ending with this final quotation here in his book, Prema Vivarta, chapter 7, Sri Jagadananda Pandit says, We'll complete this. Jagadananda Pandit says, Vairagi bai gramya katha na shunibe kane, gramya varta na kohibe jabe milibe ane, swapane o na karo bhai stri sambhashana, grihe stri charya bai asiyachovana, jadi chaha pranay rakite goram gerasane, chota hari daser kata take jena mane, bhalo na kaibo ar, bhalo na paribe, hridayete Radha Krishna sarvata sevibe. My dear brother, actually he says, Vairagi bhai. My dear brother, you are in the renounced order of life, and you should not listen to talk about ordinary worldly things, nor should you talk about worldly things when you meet with others. Do not think of women even in dreams. You have accepted the renounced order of life with a vow that forbids you to associate with women. If you wish to associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must always remember the incident of Chota Haridas and how he was rejected by the Lord. Do not eat luxurious dishes or dress in fine garments, but always remain humble and serve their lordships, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, in your heart of hearts. The conclusion is, can I read this last part?
Is it too long?
No, it's just one paragraph and then the whole thing is ending. Okay? The conclusion is that one who can control these 6 items, speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals, is to be called a Swami or Goswami. Swami means master, and Goswami means master of the go, or the senses. When one accepts the renounced order of life, he automatically assumes the title of Swami. This does not mean that he is the master of his family, community, or society. He must be master of his senses. Unless one is master of his senses, he should not be called Goswami, but Godasa, servant of the senses. Following in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, all Swamis and Goswamis should fully engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As opposed to this, the Godasas engage in the service of the senses or in the service of the material world. They have no other engagement. Prahlad Maharaj has further described the Godasa as Adanta Go, which refers to one whose senses are not controlled. And Adanta Go cannot become a servant of Krishna. So therefore Prahlad Maharaj has said, Matirna Krishne Paratak Swatova Mito Vipadyeta Griha Vratanam Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tabishram Punak Punascharvita Charvananam. For those who have decided to continue their existence in this material world for the gratification of their senses, there is no chance of becoming Krishna conscious, not by personal endeavor, by instruction from others, or by joint conferences. This is called Griha Vratana. Griha Vrata means to remain in the material world. Those persons are dragged by the unbridled senses into the darkest region of ignorance, and thus they madly engage in what is called chewing the Thank you. Hare Krishna, Gaur Premanande. Shri Upadeshamritam ki jai. Shri Rupa Goswami Pada ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. Ananta Godi Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Shri Gaur Artik Radha Krishna Jugal Arti ki jai. Vansa kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhe vacham patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo. This was a Prashadam class.